He debauched Tui when she was married to Kenna. He debauched Hunro when she was with Pendua. Then with Hunro again when she was with Hesisinadov. Then with Hunro's daughter Webket. And his own son debauched Webket too. So said his son, that's an actual sentence on a 3,000-year-old piece of papyrus. Specifically, Papyrus Salt 124, sitting right now in the British Museum in London, catalogue number EA10055. It's the first cheating scandal in recorded history. The man's name was Paneb, and the witness who turned him in was his own son. The year is roughly 1200 BCE. The place is Deir el-Medina, a tiny walled village in Egypt. About 70 elite artisans lived there, and their entire job was building the pharaoh's tomb. Everyone knew everyone. There were no secrets here, or at least there weren't supposed to be. Paneb was the foreman, the guy in charge of the whole crew. He was married to a woman named Lady Wabbit, and the two of them had at least 10 children together. He was the most respected man in the village. He'd been handpicked to oversee construction of Pharaoh Seti II's tomb in the Valley of the Kings, which was the most prestigious building site in the entire kingdom. Here's how he got the job. He bribed his way in. 5 servants gifted to the vizier, and the vizier was basically the second in command of all of Egypt. So this was a serious bribe. Position confirmed. And then Paneb went absolutely unhinged. You already heard the cheating list in the opening, but let's actually unpack what's happening there. Hunro, that woman he kept sleeping with, cycled through 3 different husbands during their affair. 3. Paneb just kept going. New husband shows up. Doesn't matter, the affair continues. And then, after years of sleeping with Hunro, Paneb decided to expand the operation. He started sleeping with her daughter Webket, mother and daughter, same year, while Paneb was still married, while he had 10 kids at home. Then there's the wall incident. A woman named Yememwa, stripped, thrown against a wall, violated. The Egyptian word translated there is genuinely ambiguous, could mean adultery, could mean assault. And Paneb's son, Apeti, he wasn't just a witness to all this, he was a participant. He also slept with Webket right after his father did. Which, yeah, take a second with that one. Oh, and the cheating wasn't even the main charge against him. It was on a list of about 15 things. He stole stone from the pharaoh's tomb to build pillars in his own. He sat on Pharaoh Seti II's sarcophagus, which in ancient Egypt was a religious sacrilege so massive it's genuinely hard to overstate. He stole a mummified goose from a royal funeral and lied about it under oath. He beat up 9 men at a single party. He threw bricks at people from the top of a wall. He threatened to murder the previous foreman. And then his son walked into court, swore an oath under penalty of death, and verified every single incident. Now you might be thinking, was this even a crime? Was anyone actually going to do anything about it? Yes, big yes. Egypt had a real legal system. 3 tiers. At the bottom you had the village elders, called the Seru. They handled small stuff. Above them was the regional court, the Kenbet. And above that was the imperial court, the Jajat. Basically a supreme court that answered only to the pharaoh himself. The whole system was built on a principle the Egyptians called Mat, which roughly meant cosmic truth and order. Lying under oath wasn't just illegal, it was a religious offense. Adultery with a married woman was specifically named as something these courts handled. And the punishments? Brutal. 100 cane strokes, 5 bleeding cuts, branding on the face for permanent dishonor. Exile to the mines, where most people died. Mutilation was on the table, cutting off hands, tongues, noses, ears. For the worst cases, drowning, burning alive, impalement on a stake, being fed to crocodiles. Adultery specifically could carry the death penalty. Some sources mention genital mutilation, and lying about it wasn't safer. The older Code of Unamu, written 800 years before Paneb, fined you 1/3 of a mina of silver for false adultery accusations. In today's money, roughly $1,000, but back then that was several months of wages for a working person. The Code of Hammurabi, written 500 years before Paneb, made the accused undergo a river ordeal. They would literally throw you into the river. If you sank, you were guilty. If you floated, the gods had spared you. That was real. Paneb knew all this. His son knew all this. They swore oaths anyway. So either Paneb thought he was completely untouchable, or somebody was lying and risking their own life to do it. Because when a suspect looks this perfectly evil, you have to look at who's pointing the finger. Over thousands of years, most of the legal records from this trial vanished. We don't have the defense. We don't have the cross-examinations. All we have to go off of is one surviving document, Papyrus Salt 124, which means to get the truth, we have to play devil's advocate. And when scholars finally looked closely at the man who actually wrote this complaint, the whole narrative cracked wide open. The author was a man named Amenecar, and he was not a neutral witness. In fact, he was supposed to have Paneb's job. Now, supposed to have his job means something very different in our world than it did in theirs. Today, jobs aren't inherited. Back in Deir el-Medina, the foreman position was passed down within families, like a family business, father to son, brother to brother. It wasn't just a career, it was your birthright. Amenek's father, a man named Nebnefer, had been the foreman before all of this. When Nebnefer died, the job went to Amenek's brother, Neferhotep. Then Neferhotep got mysteriously killed by, and this is the actual phrasing in the records, an enemy, conveniently for Paneb, who showed up right after, bribed the vizier with those 5 servants, and walked into the foreman job that by tradition and by law should have gone to Amenacht. Amenacht had been stewing about this for years before he picked up a reed pen. And then there's the papyrus itself. The handwriting is beautiful. Clearly a professional scribe wrote it out, but the grammar is bad, riddled with errors. Scholars believe Amenacht, who was literate but not a trained scribe, dictated the whole thing to a hired hand in a fury. Some think it was never even officially filed in court. It might have been a personal draft of revenge that ended up in the legal record by accident. And Paneb fought back, hard. He swore counter oaths, denying everything. About the tomb robbery, he said directly, under oath, "I did not upset a stone in the neighborhood of the place of Pharaoh." And he had history beating the system. Earlier in his career, the previous foreman tried to get him punished for misconduct. Paneb went over the vizier's head, straight to the pharaoh himself, and got the vizier fired. He wasn't some passive target getting steamrolled. He was a political operator who knew exactly how to work power. And one more detail, Yemwa, the woman thrown against the wall, she was Amenak's own sister. Suddenly the question stops being, how did this monster get away with it? And starts being, wait, are we actually rooting for the wrong guy? So which is it? Was Paneb a serial cheater and predator? Or was he a competent foreman framed by a jealous rival who lost a job he thought was his? Here's where most historians have landed. The cheating? Almost certainly real. The detail is too specific, the named witnesses are too many, and Paneb's own son testified, and a Patti would have known he was risking his own life by lying under oath. You don't fabricate that level of corroboration. Multiple workmen, multiple wives, multiple specific incidents named with specific dates and places. The probability that all of that was invented is basically zero. So no, the title isn't clickbait. Paneb really did cheat with multiple married women in his own village while running Pharaoh's tomb, while married with 10 children at home. The wall incident with Yeyemwa is more contested. The fact that she was Ameneket's own sister gives the story a personal motive that makes scholars cautious. It might have happened the way it's described. It might have been embellished. We genuinely can't tell. The tomb robbery and the sacrilege charges, those Paneb denied directly under oath. Some scholars think those specific accusations were exaggerated or possibly invented to bury him under so many charges that something would stick. So the realistic answer is he probably did most of it. Definitely the affairs, probably some of the theft, maybe not all of the wilder stuff. Amenacht wasn't writing fiction. He was writing a real legal complaint with a generous helping of personal venom layered on top. So what actually happened to Paneb? We don't fully know. What we do know is that he was eventually replaced. A foreman named Anakat shows up in the records, taking over the role. And decades later, one of Paneb's own descendants referenced Paneb's trial in a completely separate legal complaint. So the trial definitely happened. We have the accusations, we have his defense, we have evidence a trial took place. What we don't have anywhere is the verdict. The first cheating scandal in recorded history is also the first unsolved cheating scandal in recorded history.